Well, I guess we know why everything went down the way it did in Russia, right? Everybody was memeing on Tony DeAngelo when he had his contract with SKA St. Petersburg mutually terminated. Oh, how toxic do you have to be to get kicked out of the KHL? How much of a bad locker room presence are you that even the folks in Russia don't want anything to do with you? And this was talked about a little bit. We had been discussing Tony DeAngelo's name a lot this season, actually. Not necessarily because him and SKA St. Petersburg were like super amazing, although he was very productive with that organization, but because Tony DeAngelo put himself in the Montreal Canadiens' Ivan Demidov fan club so hard this season, and a lot of Canadiens fans were building off of things that he was talking about in regards to Demidov, and there was a link between the two, obviously, because they were two of the top scoring players on SKA, and there was a lot of camaraderie there between Tony D and Ivan Demidov. So we have been making videos about DeAngelo a lot throughout the course of the year, mostly within the scope of SKA and Montreal, though. However, he had his contract mutually terminated, he had fewer minutes in the recent games with SKA, and he had stopped producing points, too, unfortunately for the team. So, when he got his contract terminated, a lot of us were kind of questioning, okay, what's up here? What's the situation? We already saw from Tony DeAngelo earlier in the year that he wasn't optimistic about returning to the NHL. He said this in an interview with Larry Brooks of the New York Post back in December. So a lot of us were thinking, okay, like if he said that he's not going to return to the NHL, or it's very unlikely he's not optimistic about coming back to the NHL, what's the situation here? Why is he getting his contract terminated? We have no real reason to think about him leaving SKA other than maybe SKA just didn't want him. But now we have ourselves the answer. The New York Islanders have signed defenseman Tony DeAngelo to a one-year contract for the remainder of the 24-25 season. And because he got the contract, he is now going to be placed on waivers. That's the entire process. He needs to be placed on waivers because he was playing in Russia earlier this year. The Elliot Friedman tweet goes out there and describes it pretty well. DeAngelo, because he played in another league this season, he must clear waivers before he can be activated. He is on them right now. I would be surprised if Tony DeAngelo gets claimed by any other team. Essentially, though, because he is on New York, or he is with the Islanders, he will be given a pretty significant role. Why? Well, because you have Noah Dobson, who is week to week with a lower body injury that does not require surgery. This was reported by Dennis Gorman earlier yesterday, and so with Dobson out for a sustained amount of time, there needs to be some extra support on defense. These are the lines that they're going with right now. You've got Pelican Pollock, Romanov Mayfield, Cholowski, and George. Is there room for a Tony DeAngelo to find himself in a top offensive position? I would say probably yeah. So, Tony DeAngelo is going over to a situation with a guy who just returned in Barzal. He's been pretty good, by the way. Barzal and Horvat and Lee, man, this line has been so good for the Islanders ever since Barzal made his return. You now have Tony DeAngelo replacing the minutes of Noah Dobson, or maybe not necessarily the minutes, but the offensive production and deployment of a Noah Dobson. And now he's on waivers. You have to wait 24 hours before he's able to officially be assigned to the roster. Everybody is memeing about this. Let's dive into what DeAngelo was doing in Russia and what the situation is right now. So, Tony DeAngelo, as we had said, had 32 points in 34 games played with SKA St. Petersburg. He was one of the top scoring defensemen in the entire league when he ended up leaving. And even though he went pointless in the last 4 games in a row with SKA, he still was pretty productive over there. Let's go out there and see defenseman. Yes, let's go over here. And then we will look at the D-man scoring. So Tony DeAngelo was one of the top guys. I think he still is one of the top point per game guys. Only Trevor Murphy is better than Tony D at this point. So he was a super valuable asset, although he kind of just decided to leave. Even though he said he didn't feel like an NHL return was likely, he ends up signing with the Islanders in a position of need. Ultimately, though, because DeAngelo is from New Jersey, this is some sort of a hometown reunion here, you know, the New Jersey, New York area. He's going back over there. The fact that they do need some right-handed defenseman support is intriguing as well. It's probably the big reason why the Islanders turned to Tony and were like, hey, we kind of need a defenseman. Noah Dobson's out. Do you want to come back and play with us? So Tony D, who ended up doing some pretty good things in the NHL recently, is accepting that role. 53 points in 68 games played with the New York Rangers in 2019-20, 51 points in 64 games played with the Hurricanes in 21-22, 10 points in 14 games in the playoffs in the 2022 Stanley Cup tournament, and then he had 42 points in 70 games with the Flyers in 2022-2023. He has always had his issues. I remember back when Tony DeAngelo was drafted in the 2014 draft, the feature that they did on him on the Sportsnet broadcast before he was taken by Tampa Bay. He had this attitude, he was this really charismatic and talkative guy, and you could tell he knew what he believed in, and he believed in his own game. He was really a character in the 2014 draft. And eventually, with all the attitude issues that came to light with him and his own teammates and the fight with Alexander Georgiev later on, we all kind of recognize that, okay, Tony DeAngelo is that kind of a crop disturber, and it's why he ended up bouncing from team to team to team, despite being a highly productive offensive defenseman. He's very talented, but he's maybe not necessarily the most beloved guy throughout the NHL locker rooms that he has been a part of over the years. So DeAngelo getting one last shot here, maybe not even one last shot. I mean, he's 29 years old in the smack dab middle of his prime. So who knows if he really is on a last dance situation here. But going over to the Islanders, a team that does need some support on the right side D, this will be a very intriguing opportunity. To end things off, though, I wanted to go over on the Pro Hockey Rumors. Let's read this article here and dive into some of the latest updates. He'll join the club for the remainder of the 24-25 season after recently being released by SKA of the KHL, assuming he clears return waivers. The deal is worth the prorated league minimum of $775,000 with no bonuses, Frank Saravalli reports. DeAngelo, 29, generated little interest on the open market last summer after completing a one-year, $1.675 million contract with the Hurricanes. He reportedly approached the Oilers about the PTO shortly before training camp, but the interest was not mutual. DeAngelo then inked a one-year deal to head to Russia for the first time, a move that had been rumored for much of the latter half of the last offseason. The power play specialist told Larry Brooks in early December he wasn't optimistic about an NHL return, but it appears he felt an opportunity may be materializing when SKA released him on January 13th. The New Jersey native lit up the KHL in his brief run overseas, posting up 32 points and a +15 rating in 34 games on a St. Petersburg roster that includes longtime Capital and brief Hurricanes teammate Kuznetsov and Canadiens prospect Ivan Demidov. DeAngelo's move overseas means he must clear the little used return waiver process. It's sometimes resulted in claims, including the time the Coyotes nabbed Harry Sateri off of waivers from the Maple Leafs in 2022 after Toronto attempted to bring him over to bolster their goaltending depth. The Islanders were in need of that help, especially with Noah Dobson out Monday against the Blue Jackets, and he is still out, while depth puck mover Mike Riley remains on the LTIR after undergoing heart surgery in November. So this seems to be the scoop here for Tony DeAngelo heading over to the New York Islanders. I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about this contract signing. Do you think it's a good move? Do you think the Islanders will see benefits out of this? I admittedly have had Tony DeAngelo on my NA list in fantasy for the entire year. I memed it up and I grabbed DeAngelo, Kuznetsov, and Demidov because they were all in the Yahoo database. So now I actually have an opportunity to use DeAngelo on my team. And if he gets power play minutes alongside of Matthew Barzal and everybody, who knows how good this is going to be. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Tony DeAngelo getting signed by the Islanders. I hope you enjoyed this video. 9 and bye.